let's get started. We got a lot to get through. I knew that was a lot to ask council members. They love to talk.
All right, can we be quiet? We're going to start here.
All right, I know you all want to get out of here by 9 o'clock, so let's get going. I'm Tara Biter-Fleur. I'm the Mayor Sheridan. I'm also the chairperson of the Homeless Policy Group. So I'd like to welcome you all to our meeting tonight to talk about homelessness. A couple administrative notes. As you can see, I'm speaking into the mic, and I can hear myself. It's a little disorienting, but make sure if you're speak into the mic. It is being recorded just so we can hear you on the recording. The restrooms are out the door a little further down and to the left. Feel free to come and go to the restrooms, to come and go back to the food if you want seconds or drinks or whatever. And we'll also try to take a break about halfway through, even though it's not on the agenda. So let's get going with some introductions. We have some new council members and we want to get to know everybody. So why don't we start over here with city managers and we'll make our way around, and then staff in the back after that.
Hi, and welcome to Inglewood. Our mayor, Daniel Sierra, asked me to apologize. He's running a few minutes late, but he will be here shortly. I'm Sean Lewis, city manager.
Devin Granberry, city manager, Sheridan.
I'm Jim Becklenburg, city manager of Littleton.
Joe Anderson, I'm District 3 City Council in Inglewood.
Jay Whitaker, City Council Sheridan.
Gretchen Ryden, City Council in Littleton.
Hi, I'm Ernie Camacho, City Council for the City of Sheridan.
Terrence Kelly, Councilman Sheridan.
Good evening, Steve Ward, Council District 4 for Inglewood, which borders both Sheridan and Littleton, District 4, Southwest Inglewood.
Rita Russell, Inglewood City Council member at large.
Tina Prang, newly elected City Council member for Inglewood.
Pam Grove, Littleton City Council at large.
Kim Wright, Inglewood City Council at large, newly elected.
Robert Reichart, newly elected Littleton City Council.
Steve Barr, District 3 and new mayor pro tem for Littleton.
Chelsea Newnenkamp, Inglewood City Council, District 2.
Kyle Schlechter, mayor of the city of Littleton.
You've already heard from me.
And Nathaniel Sierra, council member District 1, as well as mayor for the city of Inglewood.
We have different microphones. Tamara Niles, city attorney in Inglewood.
Reed Betzing, Littleton city attorney at large.
Tim Dodd, deputy city manager in Inglewood.
Kathleen Osher, assistant city manager at City of Littleton.
Elizabeth Watts, management fellow, City of Littleton.
I'm serving as Tri-Cities Homelessness Services Coordinator.
Julie Latham, housing policy analyst, City of Littleton.
I'm Doug Stevens, Littleton Police Department.
Joel Jose, Inglewood Police Department.
All right, thank you, everybody. Glad to see some new faces, and welcome to our first Tri-Cities meeting to those of you who are new. I also want to thank our host, Inglewood. Thank you so much for dinner and for putting us up here and all your technological marvels. It's more than I'm used to. All right, well, we made it through the introductions in record time. Good job. We're going to keep it moving along. If Devin, are you ready? Devin Granberry, yes? I think it's up to the speaker. I mean, some people are more comfortable up front, some people are more comfortable at their seats, so. If you do it up here, they can see the slide right there.
Right in the middle. Is this my clicker? All right, very good. Thank you. All right. Hello again, everybody. Again, Devin Granberry, city manager, City of Sheridan. I've been lucky enough to be part of this effort since the very beginning. And so with me being the old guy on here with the gray hair and been around for a while, then they decided to make me talk about the history. And I'm going to be very brief, though. So we started actually working on this through a regular Tri-Cities meeting where we're talking about, well, what kind of issues should we be looking at and tackling as a region? And there was various discussions around that, but homelessness obviously rose to the top. And thanks to people like former Mayor Linda Olson and our Mayor Tara Biter-Fleur, and some other electeds, we were able to convene the Tri-Cities Homeless Policy Committee. And we established a charter for that committee in December of 2018. I want to throw out thanks to Sama Fox. Those of you who know Sama that used to work in Littleton has moved on, but she was very instrumental in writing that charter, and just wanted to give her some props for that as well. But the group was able to come together, draft up a charter, and get those approved by the three councils. I'm going to go quickly through here. We established, okay. Tell me if I'm doing this wrong. Oops, wrong way, right? Okay, that's it, sorry. Okay, so we established some goals as a group. I'll go quickly through those. To understand the homelessness situation in the Tri-Cities area, to work proactively to ensure legislation at our local levels is supportive and consistent across each of the cities, to collaboratively work across jurisdictions to create a coordinated approach with all stakeholders, encourage and support coordination and resources between the cities and other supporting organizations such as Change the Trend, and to support community education initiatives and an opportunity for two-way communication and learning. We also established some general powers, and I think it's important that the charter was much longer, but I really just wanted to point out the goals and the general powers. And I think this is something we should be aware of. The general powers: the policy group shall have the responsibility, duty, and powers to address the needs of the constituency as it relates to homelessness in the Tri-Cities, to identify or propose the creation of policies and programmatic opportunities, and to address those needs by educating their respective agencies and bringing forth policy and programmatic recommendations. Okay, as you can see from this, both the goals and the general powers were very broad, and that was on purpose. And that was because we didn't know what we didn't know. So we didn't want to necessarily handcuff ourselves into too tight a set of goals or general powers, and we realized that we needed to educate ourselves because, again, we didn't know what we didn't know. So we were able to spend much of 2019 educating ourselves, and this involved many different efforts and along many different fronts. We met with a lot of different experts in the field. I wanted to give special recognition on here for Matt Meyer, who at the time was the executive director of MDHI. He really helped our group kind of put our arms around what was important and learn how to prioritize what questions and what we should be looking into. And it was just extremely helpful because, as you can imagine, as you start looking into this, it's just huge, right? The scope of what you have to address. So he was very, very helpful in helping us to focus and prioritize our efforts. We reviewed a lot of best practices from local governments, not only in Colorado, but across the country. We conducted had two major kind of research type efforts. We conducted a PESTLE, which is a political, economic, social, and technology, environmental, and legal analysis. And that helped us, it's kind of a strengths and weaknesses type of analysis, and helped us to see where we had gaps in our service, where we had opportunities to be able to do better. Also, very importantly, we engaged the University of Denver and their Center for Housing and Homeless. I think they're still called that. They might have changed the name, but anyway, that's at least what they were called at that time. And we asked them to produce two studies for us. The first one was a study of chronic chronic homelessness among single adults. And then the second study was a study of family homeless assessments. That was particularly important to our council in Sheridan. And we felt it was important to look at those as two separate types of efforts on that. Let's see, recognize them. And then finally, we were able to engage Dr. Alyssa Orduña, and she helped us to begin to formulate a draft action plan. And I think I'm handing off to Tim. Tim, is this the equivalent? Okay.
Thanks, Devin. Although I was not with the city of Inglewood when this process started, working on developing this action plan was one of the first things that I had a chance to work on. So as a segue from where City Manager Granberry left off, this slide basically shows the initial approach that we took, as well as a little bit of the data that we collected from the DU study. So to solve any problem, of course, you need to start by addressing the root causes. And so the DU study and the PESTEL helped us understand causes of homelessness in the region, as well as barriers to housing. So this part was critical to being able to develop the action plan because, of course, we wanted to develop it around having solutions that were going to address the root causes that were identified. In terms of the plan development, we worked with Dr. Alyssa Orduña, who is part of the Florence Elise Advancement Network. She had extensive experience as a homelessness program manager and has been doing this consulting work for a few years now. The entire cost of the action plan was $11,400 split between the three cities, so we're pretty proud of the relatively low cost of developing this. And we really wanted to take an incremental approach, and we ended up organizing, and the next presenter is going to talk about what the 4 priority areas are, but it's a pretty well laid out document that I believe you have in front of you that also includes tables with projected costs, as well as phases. And so we have, thanks to Mike Sangren's leadership, we've been able to scale it across a few years. And it also identifies stakeholder roles. The ultimate cost of the action plan was about $750,000, which I believe most cities, the 3 cities have allocated ARPA funding to. I do want to point out, though, that did not include the monies that cities gave to Bridge House, but it did include some of the funding for the Navigation Center. The project phases, it started with doing a reflection and a post-study analysis of the interviews that were done for the DU study. Dr. Orduña then held what she called ancillary stakeholder meetings. So that included meeting with everyone from the county sheriff to other county officers, I believe our state and federal legislative delegations or their representatives, business groups, nonprofit leaders, state agencies. All told, she conducted 55 oral stakeholder interviews and just asked 3 simple questions. So what is working, what can be improved, and what priorities would you like to see the plan address? And the next speaker will go into more detail about the plan, which I believe is Mike, right?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Devin. The Tri-Cities Homeless Action Plan comprises 4 categories, and what we're going to do in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk us through an overview of the action plan, the contents of the plan that's been developed through the process that was just presented, and then we'll spend some time doing a kind of a status update on the implementation of the plan, and then we'll look at the financials that have been contributed to the plan in its totality from the partners in this room, as well as county, state, and federal partners, and then give an overview of the impact that the plan's having and that it's projected to have moving forward. And then the back half of our presentation tonight will really zero in on a few key projects within the plan and start to tell some human stories of the impact that the plan is having, as well as highlight some of the projects that are coming in the next year and months and years to come. And so, like I said, the action plan is broken into 4 general categories that are designed to create a framework for activity and response to homelessness. Each category, as you can see on the slide, carries 2 to 3 recommendations. Each category also carries a number of specific action steps that aren't represented on this slide, but we'll get into them in the coming slides. Altogether, the plan involves 30 action steps under the banner of these categories and the recommendations underneath. The implementation of the plan is structured to be a 3-year process ranging from 2022 through 2024. It is important to note that my role as the coordinator of the plan's implementation runs from July of 2022 through July of 2025, and so the coordinator role is offset by about 6 months of that kind of implementation phase. So we see a little bit of fluidity in the implementation timeline due to that staffing dynamic. The next few slides, like I mentioned, will walk through the status of each year's action steps. We've, at the policy group level, we've just developed a scoring mechanism for each action step to just track the plan's implementation, see how we're doing. If we have yet to begin working on a step, we score it as planned. If we are currently working to implement a step, we score it as in progress. And if a step has been implemented, it's marked completed. So through this scoring system, we're able to track the progress of the overall plan implementation. You'll also notice that the number of action steps tapers through the years, through the 3-year process. This structure was developed for 2 reasons. One, it allows space for ongoing management of items that have already been implemented. And 2, it also allows for some natural fluidity in the timeline for implementation. We know, for example, some items take longer to implement than others. Our year 1 action steps are currently scored at 13 out of 17 completed, with another 4 projects still in progress. Here you'll see much of our foundational work to build this effort. You'll see here the creation of the coordinator position, the continuance of the Tri-Cities Homelessness Policy Group, increases in our collective usage of the Homeless Management Information System to better track trends around homelessness in more real time. You'll also see here some of the low-hanging fruit action steps, such as partnering with the Built for Zero initiative in partnership with the broader Metro Denver region. This effort's resulted in a 20% decrease in veteran homelessness over the last 2 years. Here in Tri-Cities, we've been able to move 12 veterans out of homelessness since July of 2022. We currently have 6 veterans on our by name list, and we have a group gathering monthly working to move them out of homelessness. That group also recently added 8 unhoused single adults to that list, marking an expansion of that Built for Zero effort into further demographics beyond veterans. Another step you'll see here is increasing referrals to the One Home system, prioritizing our most vulnerable unhoused community members for housing through MDHI. You'll hear that acronym a few times. MDHI is the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. They're what's called our Continuum of Care, which is the entity that takes point on regional coordination around homelessness, as well as managing federal dollars being put towards the issue in our region. So Metro Denver Homeless Initiative, as Devin mentioned, has been a strong partner at the policy group since day one. Matt Meyer, when he was executive director, was really a guiding force in the policy group's work. And then Jamie Reif, who has been the executive director for the past 2 years, has also been a strong kind of guiding force and really a champion for our data tracking systems as well as our Built for Zero work. So I'm going to use the shorthand MDHI, but I wanted to just clarify what that acronym means moving forward. We have been increasing our referrals to the One Home system through that coordinated entry system with MDHI. In 2022, Arapahoe County as a whole saw 42 people housed through this program. We would like to do better. We're hoping that 2023 numbers will show an increase in this work, and also moving into 2024, we're going to begin tracking Tri-Cities specific housing placements through that system, and so we'll be able to begin tracking how many people are getting housed through One Home directly in our region rather than at the county level. So we'll have some granularity in that tracking as well moving into next year. Finally, I just want to draw your attention to Ready to Work as an action step in this year 1. This project continues to score at in progress and will be completed upon the launch of the program next year when the Bridge House facility completes its renovation. We're going to discuss that project in more detail in a few minutes from some of the Ready to Work staff members are going to give us an overview of that program. Moving into year 2, we're scoring these projects at 3 out of 10 completed with 7 out of 10 in progress. Here you'll see a couple final foundational items, such as the creation of a lived experience advisory board. This board is established and active. You'll actually hear from one of our board members via video later in the presentation tonight. Here you'll also see the creation of the Tri-Cities Homelessness Navigation Center, which is a project that's projected to house up to 60 individuals annually, which again we'll discuss as a specific project highlight later in this presentation. This year's projects also include piloting a safe parking initiative, which again we will discuss later in the project highlights section, as well as strengthening outreach to landlords. Finally, moving into year 3, we have 3 small but mighty projects in our year 3 goals. We're currently scoring these projects at 1 out of 3 completed, 1 out of 3 in progress, and 1 out of 3 still planned. Here, I'll draw your attention to the creation of an online platform to access homeless services. This project, as well as several others, have been integrated into the development of tricitieshomeless.com, which is a website dedicated to this broader initiative. We'll walk through that site in a couple minutes as well for your review. This year also calls for focus on a street outreach team, which has seen steady progress in the launch and expansion of the mobile response unit in partnership with the All Health Network. That mobile response unit is currently active in Inglewood and Littleton. If that type of service expands to the entire region, we'll be able to mark this step as complete. Finally, year 3 carries the only item still scored as planned within the overall action plan, our feasibility assessment for permanent supportive housing. The action plan calls for feasibility work to determine the appropriateness of permanent supportive housing in our region in order to combat chronic homelessness throughout Tri-Cities region. This project aligns with an item that I think our elected officials will discuss at the end of the time tonight regarding the potential future work of the policy group, specifically a potential focus on deeply affordable housing in our region. So overall, our homeless action plan currently sits at 57% completed, 40% in progress, and 3% planned. Although we're experiencing some slight fluidity in the implementation process with regards to specific action steps, I do believe that this progress means we're on track to see this plan fully implemented on time, or at least by the end of the commitment that you all have made to fund the coordinator position. Moving on to the finances that have gone towards this plan. On this slide, you'll see totals. You'll actually see, I believe they're underneath your packets on your table. You'll see a breakdown of contributions in table format. And then just the summary on the slide here. With regards to the costs of the plan and the contribution from all partners, the totals are represented here on this slide. You'll see that the total investment in this action plan amounts to just over $12 million, with Inglewood contributing 1.4, Sheridan contributing just over 300,000, and Littleton providing just over 740,000. We've seen another 1.3 million come in from Arapahoe County. We've seen about 6.8 million come in from our partners at the state of Colorado, and finally 1.5 million from the federal government. This funding came from Congressman Crow's sponsorship of the Ready to Work program through the 2021 congressionally directed spending program. So we're grateful to see some federal attention and federal dollars go towards this work. This means that for every dollar at the municipal level that's been contributed, we've seen about $1.8 come in from county, state, and federal levels. We also have 4 programs that have been supported by private philanthropy as well, specifically the Built for Zero effort, our Ready to Work program, Cross Purpose, as well as our Navigation Center. With regards to finances, it's also important to note that the vast majority of these dollars are American Rescue Plan dollars. We've known that we've seen a significant influx of American Rescue Plan COVID relief dollars come into the area in the last several years, and we've gone after a lot of those dollars to support this work to respond to homelessness. Of the $12.1 million total, about 9.7 of that are ARPA dollars. And so much of that funding has gone and will go to capital development for the contents of the plan, as Tim alluded to. For example, the Bridge House facility acquisition and renovation has been one of the largest capital expenditures that we've made. So I think we've done a good job of taking advantage of the unique opportunity that ARPA has provided to fund these capital needs. However, we recognize that ongoing funding will be needed within the next couple years to maintain the most effective of these programs. We feel optimistic about homelessness response funding opportunities that are being developed at the state through Proposition 123. We actually had the director of DOLA's Office of Housing Initiatives present on these emerging opportunities to the policy group last month. Additionally, many of the projects within this plan involve partnerships with nonprofit organizations, and so we feel well positioned to reach out to the philanthropic sector as well with opportunities to partner. So we've done our best to capitalize on the opportunity that ARPA provides while positioning ourselves hopefully strategically to seek funding for these projects on an ongoing basis. I do expect conversations in the next several years to be had around the best ways to fund these programs from an operational standpoint, which projects make the most sense to lean into with contributions beyond ARPA dollars. And a good way to make decisions like that is to track which projects are having the most impact in terms of, at the end of the day, moving people out of homelessness and easing the burden of this issue on our community. And so the next two slides highlight several of the projects within the action plan that are having and will have direct impact in the lives of unhoused folks. The regional coordinator position provides a dedicated staff position focused on bringing these projects into reality and tracking their impact. The Tri-Cities webpage creates a centralized digital hub for communication regarding this initiative. There are dedicated pages on that site focused on helping community members access services, as well as highlighting opportunities for members of the public to volunteer and support this work. The Lived Experience Advisory Board provides a 5-member board speaking into this initiative from the perspective of lived expertise. We had our Lived Experience Advisory Board review the website last month, actually, and they provided deeply valuable insight specifically into one page around the Need Help page. Increasing one-home referrals will result in housing placements of our most vulnerable unhoused community members. As I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I've been working with MDHI to build the capacity to track Tri-Cities specific housing placements from this tool. That will begin to be tracked in January. And so after 6 months of data collection, we'll be able to start running reports of those Tri-Cities specific housing placements through One Home. So we expect that to those types of reports to begin in July of next year. Our Built for Zero effort will result in functional zero for veteran homelessness and is building capacity to expand to broader demographics, including an initial focus on single adults. The Ready to Work program is projected to move up to 50 individuals from homelessness into employment and housing each year. Cross Purpose has currently graduated 90 individuals into job placements and have built those graduates have built an estimated $3.5 million of wealth in their lives as a result of their experience in that program. Our Navigation Center is expected to place up to 60 individuals into housing each year. The PATH Outreach team, in partnership with the All Health Network, is currently making up to 80 outreach contacts per month and providing case management to up to 25 clients per month. Finally, we're developing a work plan for landlord engagement, and this may be ambitious, but I'm hoping that we can support up to 40 housing placements throughout the next couple years with this project. With my last slide for now, I want to try and show how this projected impact interacts with current trends around homelessness in our region. In the last year and a half, we've greatly enhanced our capacity to track data around how many people are homeless in our Tri-Cities region. And we've done this two ways. First, we worked with local providers to begin entering their client data into the Homeless Management Information System, which provides a real-time report of how many people are requesting service related to homelessness. And so that total is it's not a total number of folks who are experiencing homelessness, but on a monthly basis, we can get a count of how many people are requesting service related to homelessness. And so it gives us an indicator on an ongoing basis of how many people are asking for help related to homelessness. Second, we worked with MDHI to produce Tri-Cities specific totals of the annual point-in-time count. 2023 was the first year we've been able to see those numbers with this level of granularity. And so currently, we're able to track on a monthly basis how many people are entered into HMIS and also capture an annual total count of homelessness. So these numbers can be seen in more detail by viewing the monthly dashboards on tricitieshomeless.com. We post those on a monthly basis. So you can see trends as well as impact trends on that site. But I wanted to share a couple numbers with you on this slide. the point in time count for the Tri-Cities region in 2023, which again is the first year we're able to access these numbers, that counted a total of 168 individuals who were experiencing homelessness on a given night in January of last year. That encompasses both folks who were sheltered in emergency shelter as well as counted unsheltered out on the streets. Additionally, our monthly HMIS sampling has averaged 149 individuals requesting homeless services in our region on an ongoing basis. That's the average monthly total from this past year. So if we rely on these two data sets, we can estimate that we have around 159 individuals on the streets on a given night in our Tri-Cities region. Now, if we look at the projects within the action plan that will result in direct housing placements, we see that we're building the capacity to place around 125 individuals into housing each year between all of the projects that are encompassed within the plan. So given the scope of the issue in our region, I take this as an indicator that this action plan is building a proportional response to the scope of the issue in our region and truly has capacity to provide life-changing services to our community members in need. And so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to turn it back over to Mayor Biter-Floor for either a break or our next item.
Yeah, I think we're moving pretty quickly, so why don't we keep going for now? And I'll introduce Melissa Green and Scott Medina if you're ready to come talk about Bridge House Ready to Work.
Hi, thank you for having us. I'm Melissa Arwell Green, CEO of Bridge House. You might know us better as Ready to Work.
And I'm Scott Medina, Director of Community Relations. Is that, we need to speak louder? Is that, thanks, okay. So we'll, great to be here and hear the wonderful overview. Thank you so much. It's really inspiring to see everything that's going on down here, and we're excited to be part of it.
Absolutely. So I think we have some slides.
Do we
show them? Okay. Well, you know. So we are Bridge House, Colorado's only workforce solution to homelessness. For us, our mission, sorry, I don't do so well with these things in case you didn't know, I just like to yell. There's nothing in the world that can stop someone on our mission. And our mission is to be unstoppable. In the face of homelessness and in the face of doubt, we keep moving. There is nothing in the world that can stop us from getting the job done every day for every person.
Yeah, and so Bridge House has been really changing the face of homelessness. We've been focused in Boulder for over 25 years, and we've really done a wide span during that time from basic emergency, basic needs. We were a day shelter for a long time, doing kind of soup kitchen programs as well, basic case management, then moving into navigation centers. And in the past decade, we've really been fine-tuning this program of Ready to Work, which is mostly what you've heard about, but Bridge House being the larger organization. So we've seen a lot of different facets of approaching homelessness. And the reason now we are so focused on Ready to Work is because it's something that really is getting results and getting people permanently, sustainably out of homelessness, which is, the most that any of us would want to have happen. So we've got this history with basic needs behind us, and we still are involved with that to an extent, but moving more into our Ready to Work. And we also, Community Table Kitchen, we have up there because that's one of our very successful social enterprises that we run out of Boulder on a number of different fronts as well. So this just goes back a little bit of the history that I was speaking in. We have been doing navigation programming since 2013. And the Ready to Work program has been going for over a decade now as well. Keep going? Yeah. Right, great. So as we look in navigation in Englewood also, we're really looking at both of these being paired in the same building where the Ready to Work building would be housed, and we'd have up to 50 beds for the Ready to Work program. That's a year-long program. And Melissa will talk more about that in just a moment. But navigation being a smaller program for much shorter span of time. So in Ready to Work, people are with us for a year. Navigation, the average stay will be about 28 nights. and really looking for getting shorter term outcomes for people to be placed in housing.
All right. So what is ready to work? We come through to accomplish our goals. And for us, a successful graduate means that they are employed with full-time employment and that employment sustains their housing. And how do we do that? We use a three-legged stool approach. The first is work first program. So they will go to work in one of our social enterprises, housing from day one. And then the magic really is the support services. So every person that comes into our program has a customized program. So the core of the program doesn't change, but the barriers for that individual coming into the program might be different. So we want to remove every barrier that they come to us with. So the support for that individual is going to look different. So Scott and I were in the program together. My program is going to look slightly different than Scott's, even though the core is the same. So we do have paid employment through transitional work in our social enterprises. We have a landscaping crew that goes out. You'll see us already in your communities. We're in Kelly Green. And then we have the culinary side. So we do have a catering company. We have a brownie company. We have Whole Foods that we share out. So we make meals that go back out to food banks, and then those go out on different kinds of services. Housing, community living. So it's congregate. We have spaces for men and women. They're not housed on the same floor, but they do share the common spaces in the building. 24/7 access to wraparound support. Sobriety is required. We do random UAs and BAs. If somebody uses while they're in our program, it doesn't mean that they're going to get kicked out. We are not one and done. We understand relapse, and in fact, we want to see relapse when they're in our program so that we can put the support around that barrier to help them when they leave. Support for us is all of those pieces that I'm saying. So when somebody comes in, they start as an intern, and during that time, we're doing a lot of different assessments and conversations to figure out what the barriers are so that we can start to remove those when they join the Ready to Work program. Oh, you don't have the button. All right, so the goals by number, and I want to point out that these numbers will be specific to Inglewood. 35 Ready to Work graduates housed and employed once they graduate out of the program. 60 navigation housed placements. And when we do navigation, we do it very, very scrappy and down and in the weeds with that individual. So somebody comes to us, we do the same things for somebody coming through navigation that we would do in our Ready to Work program. It just has a different look to it. 30 navigations other than other long-term placements, meaning they might need a higher level of care. We might need to help them get into treatment. We might help them get into a better program that will fit their needs. 80% housing retention after 12 months, and that's in our Ready to Work program. So when we graduate, 3 out of 4 trainees will graduate out housed and employed. We follow them for 12 months, and we see an 80% retention there. How did we get here? It was a long trip. We started working with the Tri-Cities before COVID, starting to do a feasibility. I look around the room and I see so many friendly faces of people that were in feasibility studies with us, having conversations, creating the partnership, and it's been a pleasure. So how are we going to get going where we're going? Let's talk about the first steps. We did purchase this building on Windermere, and we were able to do that with the support of Arapahoe County, Littleton, Inglewood, and Sheridan. Bridge House has taken on the expenses of maintaining the building now and the design and architect work, which if you've been in a big project, it's fun. Next steps, renovation. So we have opened up our sealed bids. We did have 3 amazing contractors come in with some great ideas and bids. We have settled on one. We are in the process of going under contract with that construction company. And we're able to pay for the renovation through a federal grant, Colorado grants, one from Arapahoe County, and we're still doing some philanthropic work to close the gaps. We do hope to have the Ready to Work program late 24 opening, probably beginning of 3rd quarter, but you'll see us knocking down the building and building it back up in probably February. So this is us. Bridge House is unstoppable in the face of homelessness. Any questions?
Thanks so much, Melissa and Scott.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
And that 80%, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify again, so through the program Ready to Work, that's about a 75% success rate. 3 out of every 4 people who start the program successfully graduate at the end of the year, which means they have their own full-time job, move into their own housing. Then, as Melissa said, we track them the whole year after. We have aftercare that follows up to ensure they're making good choices afterwards. So that 80% retention rate after a year, that's really 2 years after they started the program. And that's probably the most important number because that shows us it's sustainably working.
But those numbers are not for the Inglewood Bridge House because it hasn't opened yet.
That's our history thus far. And
Okay.
right, through Boulder and our Aurora location as well. And so we're very, very confident in the model at this point. We've been pretty consistent in those numbers actually since we opened the doors.
So our Boulder house has been open for 8.5 years, and our Aurora house has been open for about 5 years now in December 14th, I believe, which is very cool, coming up on our anniversary there. We have also taken this model and helped scale it down to Texas, and it is successful there as well. This WorkWorks model is not just specific to Colorado and the work we've done in Texas. There are other work-first models on the East Coast. In fact, our program was modeled after the Doe Fund's Ready to Work as well.
And how long is someone typically with you? It is not 28 days, correct?
For navigation, I think we can do a really good turnaround between 20 and 28 days to average somebody out of navigation. Ready to Work is about a year long. So that's 2 separate programs in the same location. So if we, I don't think we have it up here, do we? Nope, sorry, going to the wrong side. I can share out a picture of what the building looks like, but there is a shotgun side effect. So if you look kind of at this tree on this side of the building.
On the right side.
That will be where navigation sits. The rest of the building will be Ready to Work.
Okay, so of those that, and I don't know all the terminology and I apologize, what percentage end up in full-time work and are paying their rent 100% opposed to those that would end up on a voucher or some type of assistance with paying for their rents?
So for us, graduation really is that person is full-time employed and they're able to sustain their employment based on what they're making. There are some that get different rapid rehousing vouchers that maybe help them for the first 3 months. But for the main majority of our trainees that graduate, they're sustaining employment on their own. Well, we all know that housing is expensive. Affordable housing is just, there's not enough housing. That's why we're all here. If we had enough housing, we wouldn't be having this conversation, especially if it was affordable. So some of our graduates do live together. They might join a sober living house, really dependent to what their needs are. What we know is that the first 12 months with us starts their process of getting stable. The following 12 months, that aftercare portion for us is the most valuable time that we follow somebody that graduates because they're going to need support through that. Some of our folks have never been housed, so they're not really sure what that looks like. They lose the structure of the program and they might stumble a little bit if they're just on their own. So somebody that we know that might struggle with that, we might put with a roommate that has been on their own for a while. So we're always looking for creative ways to house our graduates, but they maintain their housing for the most part, other than maybe a couple months on a voucher.
Okay, and one more question, please.
Mhm.
What percentage of your clientele has a substance abuse issue or a mental health issue? So there's that support that's needed for substance or medication needs, that type of situation.
In honesty, 100% of our population has mental health or addiction issues in one way or another. Being homeless is a crisis in and of itself. Very hard to sustain any kind of life when you're fighting for your basic needs. So what better way to help deal with that than to use a substance that kind of lessens the impact on that. So for us, every person that we deal with has some kind of mental health or addiction issue. That's a great question.
No other questions for now? All right, thank you so much. Okay, how's everybody doing? Do we want to break yet, or do you want to keep going? Keep going. All right. So we'll welcome Tim Dodd and Elizabeth Watts up to talk about the Navigation Center a little more.
Thank you. I'm going to speak to you all. Let me make sure I get on the right slide. Oh, that is the wrong way. I've already seen it. That is also still the wrong way. My bad.
There we go.
All right, I'm going to talk to you all about navigation. So I just want to say first a special thank you to every council member. The work that the Tri-Cities region is doing is not easy work. It takes a huge community, and so you have dedicated and allocated staff to focus on these issues, and that's we know how meaningful that is. And so thank you to each and every one of you. So I'm going to chat with you a little bit about navigation. So the purpose of navigation, not to belabor more than Melissa already went into, but is to create a centralized entry point for clients to get connected with resources and services. Ultimately, we want to take away any barriers that are preventing somebody from getting into stable housing. And so this might include helping somebody get signed up for public benefits, working with job training. If it's somebody's a good fit for ready to work, it's very possible that they can go into that program. Getting them connected with mental health services, if they need to find a service that is going to help them work through an addiction, that is the connection point, will be the Navigation Center. This work is all about removing barriers and ensuring that people can get where they need to go and get into stable housing. So establishing a lead service provider is no easy task. And so thank you again for dedicating some staff members. We had the City of Littleton sponsored a request for proposal process, so an RFP, and we had really amazing individuals from the cities of Littleton, Inglewood, Sheridan. We had some representation from South Metro Community Foundation. We had a wonderful member from the Lived Experience Advisory Board, as well as a service provider, somebody from the service provider community whose organization was not applying to run the Navigation Center. That process, we opened up the bid, and it was open for 30 days, at which time we gathered the applications, went through an initial evaluation period, and then brought folks in for interviews. Of all of those applicants, Bridge House provided pretty unanimously amongst the evaluation committee just a robust plan for how to run this Navigation Center and provide all of the things that the cities needed in the action plan. So next, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Tri-Cities, TriCityHomelessness.com website. The purpose of this website is really to house, is to be a one-stop shop for a variety of different people. It might be somebody who needs some information about what homelessness is like in the region, and it might be somebody who's looking for services. The goal is really to have that be a one-stop shop. There's quite a few resources that you might find interesting. There are Tri-Cities, all meetings of the Tri-Cities Homeless Action Group. There are notes on that website. You can also find specific monthly impact data, so you can track along with us how we're doing on implementing the action plan and see the real impact on folks experiencing homelessness. You can see more about the team who's doing this work. There are a variety of organizations and what they offer. If you're somebody who is interested in helping, either donating or providing volunteer opportunities, you can find that on the website. One of, I think, the most robust parts of the website is really the In Their Words section, in which you can read interviews and then soon to be able to watch videos and really hear from people who have experienced homelessness and made it out the other side. I want to just give a special shout out to the City of Littleton. Has a wonderful senior media strategist, David Gilbert, who has really put a lot of his heart and soul into this project. And so this is really just a wonderful opportunity to hear from people who are experiencing the benefits of the work that you're doing. And so we will play a little video for you from Terry Johnson, who is actually on the Lived Experience Advisory Committee and is just a wonderful person to talk to. So while he can't be here to talk to you, I am glad that you'll be able to hear from him tonight.
My name is Terry Johnson. I'm originally from California, and I left California. I came to Colorado because just certain things weren't happening for me out there, and I wasn't doing good. And I used to be like a major meth addict, and that's all I thought about. You can go from being a millionaire and lose everything like that, and if you constantly stick with that drug, it's gonna take everything from you, including your life. You're out there and you don't know what's gonna happen. You're living day to day. You don't know where you're gonna get your next meal. You don't know where your clothes are coming from. If you got to use a bathroom, it's hard for you to even go into a public facility and go even properly. May I please use the restroom? Because they don't look at you. Like I said, they look at you, but they don't. And when they look at you, they don't see a person. Everything. I had no ID. I had no social security card. I had no damn birth certificate. Terry was a man walking around in Colorado, and they didn't even know he existed. And those are the things that I had to get my feet planted in the ground. Well, a lot of places helped me, like Wellsprings, they definitely helped me. Giving Heart, 5280, there's places all around here to get help. Everything. They helped me get my my ID. They helped me get my birth certificate, helped me get my social security card. They helped me write a resume, cover letter, and get a job. All the more. Because now you can progress in life. You can do things. You can move forward. You're not stuck. You see? If I go up to somebody and they, oh, well, I need housing. Let's try and get you housing. I need clothing. Let's go to the clothing bank. I need something to eat. Let's go to Graceful. Let's go to the food bank. Oh, I need $1 million. I can't help you with that. But let's start with the things that we can. And then maybe we can work our way up to that. You know? They're humans. You know what I mean? They're not cattle. You ain't going to just sweep them and they're going to go away. Give them the opportunity to try and do something with their lives, even if it's a small ass one, man. I want us all to be housed. I want all of us to have a warm meal. I want all of us to have clothes on our back. All of us have a job. All of us get money. That's how it should be. There shouldn't be none of us out here poverty stricken. There ain't no reason for it. All we need is an opportunity, a small window, man. Just give me a chance.
Thank you. I just want to quickly reinforce that some of the things that Terry expressed struggling with are really things that the Navigation Center is set up to help. Those are the barriers that they are going to help somebody get through, whether they don't have a social security card, they don't know how to make a resume. Those are really things that the Navigation Center is designed to do. And so we're really excited to be able to house that in Inglewood, though the clientele for the Navigation Center will be from all of the Tri-Cities, so Inglewood, Sheridan, and Littleton. So very excited. We're looking forward to a late December 2024 launch with hopefully some navigation services phased in starting as early as the summer. So very excited. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it back over to Mayor Bider.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's great. All right, I'm gonna make the decision. We're gonna take a 10-minute break. Is that too long? 5? You're gonna go fast. Okay, 5-minute break. Get a drink, restroom break, get some dessert maybe. All right, thanks everybody for coming back timely. Next up, we have Mike again. He's going to talk with us about safe parking pilot.
Thank you, Mayor. When we were putting together the agenda for this time, we actually realized that there was one particular action step that's named in the action plan that is kind of at a place in the development of the concept where we felt like tonight would be an opportune time to bring the concept to this combined meeting and seek some input from this joint session on kind of this particular action step. And that's the action step. It falls within the single adult system, meeting the needs of single adults experiencing homelessness, and it calls for the piloting of a safe parking program. And one of the things we recognize is that this concept, it sits within the action plan, and it's also been raised in various capacities in 2 councils over the last couple months. And so we felt like I said, it would be an opportune time to just name what those interactions have been with the concept, and then bring to this combined session a couple key questions for staff to gain some input from councils as we continue to explore the concept of piloting a safe parking program in our region. And so, like I said, this sits within the single adult system. It's recommendation 2, action step number 3. When the policy group did the Center for Housing and Homelessness research survey, 35 of the folks who responded to that survey indicated that they had slept in their vehicle the day before the interview, and another 142 had indicated that they had slept in their vehicle at least once over the last 2 years. One interesting point is when we met with our Lived Experience Advisory Board a couple weeks ago, we got on the topic of this particular project, and actually all 5 members of the Lived Experience Advisory Board have at one point in time slept in their vehicles, which was kind of an interesting coincidence or data point. As we've done some kind of preliminary research around the concept of piloting safe parking, we have really one name of a service provider has risen as the only provider who's offering safe parking programming, which is the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative. This is an organization that's been around for the past several years. It's really leaned into this model throughout the Denver metro area. They're currently operating around 12 sites, none in Tri-Cities, but throughout the Denver metro area. I actually want to mention that Terrell Curtis, the director of CSPI, Colorado Safe Parking Initiative, is here tonight, joining us for this meeting just to observe and to be present. And so wanted to take a moment to thank Terrell for taking time to be present at this meeting. It's a busy time of the year, and it's an evening meeting, so thanks, Terrell, for making time to be present with us. Like I said, this concept has been raised in various capacities in Littleton Council as well as Inglewood. Inglewood actually had a presentation from Colorado Safe Parking Initiative several months ago and expressed a desire to see a proposal for what a pilot program could look like. And also the Littleton Next Gen Advisory Committee provided a recommendation to Littleton Council recommending this action step, piloting safe parking, to council. Safe parking has also risen to the attention of Arapahoe County. Some of Colorado Safe Parking Initiative sites are out in Aurora, and so actually right now they're proposing a funding grant to the county that the Board of County Commissioners will be evaluating and making a decision on early in the new year. And they're actually including in that proposal some potential feasibility work in the Tri-Cities region, not to launch a program, but to explore some funding to do some feasibility work to explore feasibility of a safe parking program in our region could be. And so if that goes through, we could have some resources from the county level to conduct some more focused feasibility work in the region, again, if the region is amicable to that. We've also, just to really kind of kick the tires on the proposal, we've drafted an operational budget for what a pilot program could look like, so we can understand what the financial implications could be as we continue to explore. And then a couple weeks back, a couple months at this point, I actually got in contact with a church in Littleton that expressed quite a bit of motivation around partnering with this project, and so I was able to take a meeting just to get to know that entity and to just hear more about their interest in this type of work. And so, like I said, this is a concept that sits in our action plan and has been raised in various capacities. And so we wanted to take time tonight to hear some input from this group, specifically around kind of 3 questions. The first one is that is there interest from this group in seeing a regional proposal for a safe parking pilot program? And then second, if there is, what considerations should staff pay attention to in developing the proposal? Any challenges to be addressed proactively? And then finally, what community stakeholders should be engaged in the process of exploring? So, yeah, Jim, did you have a comment?
Just one question prior to comments and things. Could you talk a little bit more about what safe parking actually looks and feels like? How does it work? You did a great job of kind of talking about the need and how we might do it, but just a little bit more on what it is.
Yeah, thank you. The The model as it currently looks, as Colorado Safe Parking Initiative manages it, is actually managing partnerships predominantly with faith communities, to where a partner would offer, I think in the range of 10 to 12, I think the largest one stretches up to about 20 parking spots in their parking lot that would be provided for people who are living in their vehicles to have a place to sleep overnight. Colorado Safe Parking in the current model provides bathroom services as well as hand washing stations, as well as provides case management support to everybody who accesses those sites. They see about 45% of those clients exit into a housing placement based on their current work. And they manage the partnerships with the partners who are kind of providing the parking spots. So it looks, at least with Colorado Safe Parking, it's a kind of a small scale operation, 10 to 12, 15 spots that are provided for people who are sleeping in their vehicles. At some sites, they actually compensate a peer kind of manager for kind of running the operations from a safety standpoint, from a kind of a community building standpoint at those sites. And so it's obviously in partnership with a partner like that, like a faith community. I think there's the Urban Land Conservancy provides a couple sites as well. So the model is kind of small scale, 10 to 15 spots that would be available to people who are living in their vehicle, bathroom services and hand washing station, case management provided. Yeah.
Can you give us an idea of the budget per site?
Yeah, kind of the drafted kind of general work that we've done, I can pull up the specific numbers. To do 3 sites, we would be looking at around $250,000 per year. And that would include some administrative support, funding for that case manager position, that peer lot operator, as well as just some of the operations, porta potties, some support for guests, things like that. The total operations for one lot would be around $86,000 per year. So there are obviously some variables within that. We could stretch higher, we could stretch lower, but that's kind of a general idea of the cost.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I recall the first time that this was presented, and I had a couple of questions. Do these vehicles have to be street legal? Do they have to have insurance? Do they have to have driver's license? Because I could see that as being a big barrier if someone is living in their cars, not having street legal, I guess, per se, vehicles.
Is there hot roads?
Well, yeah, I still see cars with license plates that expired in 2019. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would imagine that, and we can look into the specifics as we continue to work on the proposal. I would imagine that even if, say, registration is not up to date when somebody accesses it, that's something a case manager could work on with a client, getting that registration up to date.
And then in other, say, parking type of lots, I guess, is there a screening thing, for people with warrants or whatever? Is it just you are welcome, you stay in your car type of thing? Is that how the program works, or?
There are specific, legal situations that would bar somebody from accessing the lot. I can't speak to the specifics within the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative model, but there are some of those boundaries. I'll take that down as a question to consider as we explore.
And then one more. What happens to the other 55% of the people? Do they just kind of go off in their vehicles into wherever land? Or?
Yeah, I think the exit would be perhaps somebody no longer feels like they want to utilize that spot, and that would be obviously up to the client discretion, and for whatever reason. I think that would probably be very individualized experience as to why somebody would no longer, access a spot. Mm-hmm. And I'll say I'm taking down these questions, and that's really what we want at this point is what questions do we need to have in front of us as we continue to explore, feasibility here.
Yeah. So is there a timeline on how long they can use that parking spot? Like it's not overnight. It can be longer?
Yeah, I mean, it could be continuous. Yeah, I'm not sure how long specifically. I'm not sure if there is a requirement, and we could, all of these questions are probably negotiable as to what makes most sense in our community. And there's probably there's some data to probably back up
and
how long the lengths of use of those spots would be. But I don't have that right now. Okay. But I'll put it down.
Okay. And vehicle size? Some people are in campers.
Yeah, I think it would be open to. I mean, most single vehicles. I'm not sure that like an RV or a large camper would be appropriate for a site like this. But again, I'll put that down.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope I was clear that I don't have all these answers. I'm hoping to just gather the questions that we should be asking.
Has anybody looked in comparison? I mean, Walmarts and stuff allow RVs and people park overnight and stuff like that. So, and that costs nothing. So I don't know if they limit, how long somebody can park over there overnight and that type of thing, or if we could do a temporary partnership with them, could be a tax write-off type of thing, where, hey, you could have this many spots, for a tax write-off type of thing where we might want to look at and discuss something with them. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a question that we want to answer during a feasibility phase of what other options are there. Is this still, is there still a need? And I think that Councilmember Russell had a question.
I would like to know the crime statistics in the parking lots that are already out there, and who is providing security. And as far as Walmart, I don't know about all the Walmarts, but I know at one point the Walmart in Inglewood has not allowed camping because of the crime rate. So I think that's happening all over. So thank you.
Mike, real quick, and to Councilmember Wright, just to your question with regards to length of stay. From what we've been hearing and having some discussions with other jurisdictions that have had these practices in place for a while, such as Summit County has been experimenting and using these kind of models for years and years. They've said that you can't go with just unlimited. You have to have some time frames involved. I don't remember exactly what those were off the top of my head. And I think it kind of varies probably by the area you're in, what kind of, what's your zoning, what's your surrounding, what are those kind of things like that. But I do recall them saying, no, you need to put some time limits in place with this. But there's a lot, get too deep into the weeds, but that was,
Structure helps.
It's structure, definitely they said some structure. There's a lot of examples out there of people who have been doing this that we can learn from and that we can model after and then bring this information back to the councils.
My recollection from the presentation we had was that people don't stay during the day. So to me, that means they'd have to have an operable vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So they'd be leaving during the day in their vehicle, coming back at night. So just to kind of answer that question about whether the vehicles are mobile or not.
I would like to know best practices on educating or letting people know in the surrounding area where that parking lot is. I mean, do they say anything? Do they not say anything? How far is it? 700 feet? A block? Whatever. What is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's undoubtedly one of the considerations we want to, make sure that we're proactive about.
And I think what's important here is we are very well positioned already because we're already doing work together with our 3 cities. And we tend to be very siloed in that we think about people only in our city, but really when it comes to folks who are moving about from a doctor's appointment in Inglewood down to their job, maybe in the south part of Littleton, and then they're gonna go visit mom who lives in Sheridan. I don't want to get too caught up in what just one city is doing. I really think we should be focusing all of our efforts on something like this. And to the point over here about creating structure, that is so important. We don't want it to be a wild, wild west, which is often what happens when people are parking on their own. They don't know where to go. There's no stability. So when we have something that's a pilot, first of all, it's small scale, which means we can actually count and gather data. We can answer those questions in real time. We can report on it. We can track. And small areas like this create communities, which creates their own internal security, because then people are looking out for each other and are watching out for each other. And I think that's tremendous if we can build that. I'm going to put my social worker hat on for a moment. And this was spoken about earlier, you really can't treat some of the higher level traumatic issues until we get, where am I sleeping tonight? Where am I eating? Where am I going to go to the bathroom? Until I have those things, it's going to be harder to work on the other pieces. So I like this kind of model because it's going to help create some of that stability. And again, I think us as a group really could tackle this and be effective. And we don't have to commit to anything. That's the great thing about a pilot.
And then to echo the sentiment of Councilmember Ryden, is this isn't like creating a new problem of people sleeping in their cars. I mean, these cars are already being parked and slept in at night. And so this is a structured place where we can help them where they are safe, things like that. So I think at least for the first question, yeah, I think that is definitely a big yes, that this is the interest, at least I've heard, at least in Littleton. I'm moving forward with that. And I'll have some more to say on the other questions, but Chelsea.
Just a couple of things from me. One, I'm on the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative website right now, and most of the questions we're asking, they have great answers to right on their website. I do the FAQ, so I do direct folks there around crime, background checks, length of stay. They have RV lots, they have car lots, quite informative. So for those who are curious, I am really excited about this concept and what it could mean for this working group. A question I would have is just, is it one lot for the whole Tri-Cities? Are there multiple? What is the right scale for the scope of what we think we might need? And is it appropriate to say, yeah, just, if you're in your car, drive to this place where the lot is, or does it make more sense to have them distributed? So I would just love to know best practices about locations.
Thank you.
Can I answer that one really quick, just because I actually happen to know that one? The way at least Colorado Safe Parking Initiative does, and correct me if I'm wrong, Terrell, there is one, you go through a single entry point. So it's not just me, I'm deciding that I'm going to choose where I want to park. You go through a vetting process and then you are positioned somewhere. So for me, I think it makes sense either of those options, to either have it one place or multiple, just because basically we're offering to open up this part of the city to folks really throughout the area. Again, keep in mind, they're going to their job, to their doctor's appointments, and right now there's a big hole in this part of Arapahoe County because we don't have this option for people.
That's helpful. I have one more question I'll just add, and then I'll give up the time, is if this is also about connecting folks to services and to navigation, how can we use this as a reinforcing strategy on the other things that we're doing so it feels really interconnected and not like a siloed project on its own? So I'd really love to see in our proposal some thought into how it becomes really interconnected with the other strategies that we're investing in.
So we might be able to do better than 45%.
Real quick, Mike, before you get going on, I just want to say thank you again for the groundwork that you've done to bring this into us. And actually, I'd almost put forth the idea that this isn't really a pilot program. Like, there are actually pretty concerted success stories around there in the Front Range with like cities and like municipalities that have had good successes, both on the residential, not just for the sake of providing services to folks that need this temporary shelter option, but there's been an extraordinary amount of positive feedback that has not actually been getting that much attention from residents and from neighbors and from folks that are in the region around these safe encampments, because it is taking care of a problem that, quite frankly, is currently just purely unmanaged. And I think a strong voice in this conversation would be from some of the social workers and other staff who are currently managing sites, to hear about things that they have seen as not only successes, but things that they would like to see done differently if given the opportunity to refine and do this work better. I don't feel like we need to call it a pilot program. This is safe parking. there's a lot of good practice around it. There's a lot of good evidence of efficacy. And yeah, excited to see what the next steps are.
Thank you.
And actually, I would like to see some town hall meetings with citizens in our cities. This is not just about what we think and we sit here and we decide. We have citizens that are paying the bills in these cities, and we need to make sure that they get the information also. Thank you.
Mike, are we tracking how many of the 159 was the number you threw out of the homeless population in the Tri-Cities area? Do we, of the data we're collecting on the people who are going through those programs, do we have an idea of how many of them are living in their vehicles? And if so, I mean, it would be nice to target, like if we just open, if they go through a center, it'd be nice to target the people who are actually living in their cars in the Tri-Cities area, not just some central entry point that ends up, funneling people here, which is fine too, but we're trying to solve the problem that we have here. Is there a way to get our hands on the data that would help us do that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The best data point that we have right now is the respondents to that Center for Housing and Homelessness research. Now, I'll say that's a couple years old at this point. I think it was 2019. But that 35 folks in responding that had slept in their vehicles the night before, 142 who had indicated they had done it sometime in the last 2 years. That's probably the most recent direct data point that we have. Could be that part of the feasibility work is to do some surveying to get an idea of an updated number. But I appreciate the comment.
So I'm excited about this opportunity. I walk around my neighborhood. There's a mix of vehicles that people are living in. There's a couple sedans. There's a school bus. There's a pickup truck, and then there was an abandoned RV that I think was someone brought in. And so I'm excited about this. I think I'm okay with calling it a pilot because I think we need to communicate to our neighbors that we're trying this out, and if it doesn't work, this is dating, not a marriage kind of thing, which I think will be helpful for that conversation. And I guess my question was, or the thing that I want to know about when we do the full plan, I see these people, and they also need help with their trash. They just need somewhere to take their stuff away. And so I'd like to understand just how we think about that service when we're helping them out. But I also agree with some of the other questions that have happened. The size of the vehicles, how do we manage that? How do we notify the neighbors? I'm interested in all those things as well. But thanks for bringing this forward. I'm excited.
Thank you.
I think to get to the last question, what community stakeholders, I agree with Councilmember Russell. Yeah, we need to hear from citizens and talk to the community and let them know what's going on. But I think this is also something to reach out to the business community, the faith community, basically places that have parking lots that would make sense to allow this to be successful, school districts, and where we have these locations, because really there's lots of cars parked on our streets, parked in the parking lots throughout the night. Some of them have people in them, some of them don't. I don't view it a whole lot different of someone, I've taken a nap in my car for a couple hours during the day driving or had lunch in there, just being in your car. There's nothing wrong with being in your car. So if we can do something to keep people safe and help get them on the path, this could be much bigger than just this, one location. So
thank you.
Something that I'd like to see is not only getting input from the citizens, but we have other nonprofit groups that help our homeless that could give big impact. We have 2 people here that are huge in helping our homeless groups. We have Movement 5280. They have a parking lot. Maybe could speak to Tina. That might be a option. We have Regan here. She may be able to give impact. Reach out to those groups, those nonprofits and stuff that may have ideas and say, you guys haven't thought about this. So I think we need to reach out to those resources too, because they've been at this a little while and may have some ideas that we didn't think about. And the people that have been doing a lot of work here, there's a lot of minds here, but everybody doesn't think about everything all the time. So
thank you. Other input on any 3 of the questions?
I'll add a few thoughts. Thank you for bringing this idea forward. I think that it's worthy of exploration for sure. I am excited that it could potentially be part of wraparound services for the unhoused. There obviously, we heard about a handful of programs this evening that are providing supports, and this could just be part of that toolkit. And I think with a problem as substantial as the unhoused and just the challenges in trying to figure out how to best help that vulnerable population, having as many tools as you can is a great option. I do think, with some of the questions that we're hearing, getting some of those answers in front of the councils, to know if we want to move to that next step of looking at a formal proposal is a great idea. I would like to see included in that just a little more clarity on the supervision of sites and who is responsible for any potential cleanup that would need to occur. So at the end of the hours that the spot is available, if there is a need for cleanup, how does that occur and who's assigned to that? And then also I agree, outreach, looking at, do we have more identified potential faith-based or other options for locations, and then doing some really concerted effort in having conversations with those surrounding neighbors and being a strong partner to whoever might be willing to host that site.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
It's very, very helpful. I have plenty of notes to work with.
Those are really
Thank you.
excellent questions. So I guess we'll reconvene on that topic and consider those questions, try to get answers, and maybe set up a schedule for presentations to councils again and get better feedback on that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, Councilmember Ryden and I are going to lead a little discussion.
Only one slide though.
Yeah. Go ahead. Are you ready to kick this off? Or?
Yes. So we already went through all the major deliverables of that action plan. And you saw that, again, we're almost at 60% in terms of that being complete, or 57%, which kind of tracks with actually having a 3-year action plan being in almost the end of year 2 and almost being completed with all of year 2. Like, when does that happen in government? So I'm really impressed with that work. But we're now headed into year 3. And so that means what happens next? What's year 4? We haven't adopted that. We haven't been thinking about that yet. Well, we've been thinking about that a little bit, of those who have been serving on this Tri-Cities work group. And we have built this amazing infrastructure, as Mike spoke to. We have the relationships in place now. We have, Bridge House are ready to work, ready to launch. We have Cross Purpose. We have landlord engagement, which again is going after the preventative side. So where we want to go is, where are we going in the next 3 years, right? 2025 to 2028. What do we want our vision to be? And we need kind of another planning effort, and that would kind of get underway next year. And so where we would like to go and see built into that plan is to address the permanent supportive housing. We know that the research is there, that this is a long-term need in our community, at least in Littleton. Our housing study called for this, that we actually have an absence of these kind of properties in our city, and we need to build the supply that is very specific and targeted for less than that 30% AMI. So when we're talking about affordable housing, that's what we mean when we use this terminology here, 30% and below AMI. Joe?
Yeah, I just put an exclamation point on some of what Councilmember Ryden was talking about. We also in Inglewood had a housing assessment done, and again, we had a huge gap in that 30% less AMI. And I think for me, this is really the root of the homelessness problems, is there's not enough homes for them. And to take, our current plan kind of coming to the end here over year 3, we're going to be able to provide more services. We have lots of community partners that are providing services. We're doing good on the services front,
but I do think we need to take a step into digging into how can we actually do the hard work of providing the housing that we need, permanent supportive housing, the lower than 30% AMI housing. So I'm supportive of moving this direction.
Thank you both. I just want to say that I'm also supportive. I think, as you've mentioned, we just don't have any of this housing at all. And so those people who, we can have some people go through ready to work and they're capable, they're able to, to become employable again. And then there's just some people who need so much support, they are not going to get to that place. And we need to start thinking about those people too, and what can we do to help them have housing and not be on the street. So I think in this case, we can see where, the lack of affordable housing interacts with homelessness, and we have to get at that root cause for that group of people.
And our collective housing authorities are working and addressing some of these things. So I don't think this is going to be any extra work per se. All of our cities were already planning on this, but it's really doing more coordination and then forming something formal that we can bring all the work we're doing individually on this to a more thinking more regional, thinking more tri-cities for the folks that we're helping and supporting, getting a handle on what is the issues. Because again, we have a lot of folks moving throughout our area and it's a little bit more fluid. So,
can I ask a question? In the past 3 years, how many housing authority vouchers have been allocated to the homeless in Inglewood, Simon Center, Orchard Place, and also the Sheridan Housing Authority and the Littleton Housing Authority? Have there been any housing vouchers provided for homeless individuals? I mean, because I know you have somebody on the Tri-Cities homelessness that works for the housing authority.
I don't think, Mike, maybe you can speak to that specifically, but we could reach out and get that information, but we don't even have those direct numbers in one place because we're not thinking about it like that. And that is a great question. And then how do you define homelessness? How are we defining what vouchers are? Vouchering is very complicated in how it's moved. And you're right, that does capture some of that 30% that we're going after. But remember, there's only a fixed number of vouchers that we can distribute. And some are used on property and some are used at, scattered different properties.
Right.
Good question, though.
I totally understand that. And Joe, do you have any idea how many in Inglewood? Because I know there are homeless people that have been placed in Simon Center.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that number. It's a good question, though. I'm sure Lindsay would be happy to get that information for us.
Thank you.
Mike's shaking his head, so you'll help capture that? Okay.
Are there other thoughts or feedback on the suggestion?
Yeah, I think this, it's a good fit because, it's for the inartful way to say it, this is, pre-homelessness and post-homelessness. We're kind of hitting on both ends of that spectrum. So make sure that we have that ability to keep people from sliding into homelessness if they're struggling or when they get out and get housing. Now, someone's not going to, be ready to work and then move into, a $800,000 house right away. So that's this kind of idea. So I think it kind of expands the scope a little bit and is still focused on the root problem there.
I think that's a fantastic point. Just recently elected, so I was campaigning throughout the city. There were more elderly that I ran into that were having to decide between food, medications, property taxes, other bills. So I ended up getting hooked up with some fantastic citizens throughout the city and now deliver food baskets on Mondays to these elderly people so that they don't have to make choices between food and medication or food and whatever. Some of these folks have a pet, they will feed their cat before they will feed themselves. So I would like to know, as Tri-Cities looking at that we have vulnerable elderly people that are very close to becoming homeless or losing their properties, or if they're renters, what did they say? You're 2 paydays away from becoming homeless. And I think it's more evident now than ever And I would like to know if there are steps on looking at that or setting up programs where we are helping, current residents that are on that verge of, preventing that from happening.
Yeah, I echo that. There definitely is that need. And when we look at who really is our folks who are making below that 30% of area median income, it's seniors, it's those who have disabilities, it's those with persistent mental illness, it's with chronic PTSD, and our veterans. And part of our housing study identified aspects of that too, but I mean, that just ends up who's in the mix when you look at that. So I think by nature, it would help address that, having some space. And just having a coordinated plan, I think more than anything, as our 3 cities move forward into the next 3 years.
I would also like to see some type of like statistics, documentation to find out when we're doing the outreach, looking at the individuals that actually want help and which don't want any help. There are some individuals out there that rather live on the street. They don't want any help. But what can we do about those individuals as well?
I'm happy to weigh in here. I definitely support this workflow. Anecdotally, from speaking to some of the service providers in Inglewood, when I say, what's one of the biggest challenges you have to providing services, they said, there's nowhere for them to go. There's not housing available. People who want help, people who want to be working, who want to be able to pay their rent, but we just do not have the supply that we need. Obviously, we've all seen the data. And I really think, all the best practices that are telling us that regional solutions are the best ones. And so I really agree. If we're all going to be doing this work separately, we may as well be doing it together. And its connection to this challenge is so fundamental that I think it's a great next step for this group to be working on.
Mayor, go ahead.
I was going to say, so I'd definitely be interested in looking at this a little bit further. I'd like to understand what strategies we're looking for to provide the housing under 30%. When we were doing the code next or our housing assessment, we were noticing that obviously the market isn't really going to be providing this type of new development for under 30% or 30% and below. So just trying to understand, are we going to look to consider how do we augment what they're able to make in order to get them placed in something that currently exists? Are we looking to keep the current existing properties that are meeting this 30% and keeping them at that level? I know it feels like we're trying to do more, supply based where there's a trickle down effect to kind of bring down housing prices, but I still don't think we get down to that 30%. I'm just trying to think of what strategies we're looking at. And obviously with our affordable housing task force that we just put together, they're going to be looking at that and possibly looking at city property to kind of get to some of that 30% AMI, but just trying to understand what strategies we're looking at or considering as well.
What to kind of touch on that, what we talked about in the committee was that we, again, like when we started with homelessness, we don't know what we don't know. So you kind of start at the beginning again and look at what are the best practices, what are strategies that others are using that we could possibly use here, and you kind of start building your background on the subject again and then come up with your action plan or your strategies.
To both Mayor's points, you're right, Mayor. We don't know what we don't know at this point. I mean, a lot of us are just completing housing assessments. A lot of us are looking at updates to our codes and how does that affect it? How does our zoning affect that? So we still have some education to do with ourselves on that. But I think one of the things that makes me excited and why I'm pleased that we're proposing, looking and focusing on this segment of housing with the permanent supportive is that, and Mayor, you were just touching on this, you don't see a lot of programs out there for, say, grant funding or other types of assistance to build this particular segment of housing. You can find grants out there, financing, all those things for 30% on up is about as far as you want to go. But there's not as much that's available at the permanent supportive level below, so 30% and below. So it's going to take a focus. It's going to take a very specific focus from our region to make this happen. I feel I don't think that any of us could probably do it on our own. I think we'll be much more successful putting together proposals and getting the kind, what little funding there might be out there for that by focusing on this together as a group. That's one of the things that I've heard throughout the region as the metro region has focused more and more on homelessness as an issue, is that question, how did you guys make that happen down there? How did you, the three of you, get together and decide to start working together as three communities and address this? Whereas most everybody else has been doing this at a county level, all right, and which is fine, but I think we have a very unique situation that we have that places us favorably for approaching different foundations, different types of funding organizations that are out there that we might not be able to either access individually or, but as a group coming together and focusing on this, I really think it puts us in a great position to do this. And so I'm happy that our electeds are talking about this and considering this, and that this excites me. I think individually, our three cities, we're doing a lot of projects on our own that are 30% and above, and all of us are working on towards those things, but really none of us are working towards this. I mean, very, very few out there are, other than at the either at the foundational or the nonprofit level, and there's limits to what they're able to accomplish. So I really like the fact that we're looking at focusing on this.
I think one of the points that was brought up earlier is that, new construction, building new projects at this kind of level is certainly in this market really challenging, if not downright impossible in terms of math. Not to say it is impossible, but it's a hard road, obviously. But some of the successful programs at the county level, being that short-term kind of rental relief, those funds get snatched up quick, and that pot goes dry very, very fast. And we know that folks making at this kind of AMI oftentimes will be renters. And so there are some really successful, I think, lessons that we can learn from the counties that have rental relief programs, even at 1 or 2 months at a time, to keep folks from falling off that cliff and spiraling down in homelessness. Oftentimes it may not even take much more than a few months of rental relief to ensure that that doesn't happen. So I'd be very curious about exploring other counties and their rental relief programs kind of as part of this housing package to see, can we support existing programs? Can we expand them? Can municipalities buy in individually to pots of money that already exist out there and are well administered? So yeah, excited about the prospects for this moving forward.
Councilmember Ward.
Councilmember, also to your point, I mean, there's plenty of studies out there show it's cheaper to keep somebody from falling into homelessness than it is to bring them out.
When I see proposals for 30% AMI, one of the things that concerns me is we talk from time to time about the missing middle. And that 30% has to be subsidized somehow. And one of the solutions that has been applied previously is that it's subsidized by the other units that are at market rate, which, in my opinion, shrinks the middle even further, because what used to cost you $1,500 now costs you $1,700 or $2,000, and pushes that middle income person much, much closer to the edge. So I'm concerned about the law of unintended consequences here. I don't want to be making it more difficult for middle class people or middle income people who would otherwise be able to perhaps put some money into savings and buy a house at some point, or move into a nicer place, because they have to subsidize that 30% AMI group. And I think that's a real serious hazard when we talk about this type of thing.
And I actually would like to add to that a little bit. I believe, I'm very thankful that the three cities are working together. I think going forward from this point, I think the reason that we've been effective at doing it is because we got ARPA money. When the ARPA money dries up, even the three of us together are not big enough to be like Denver or like Aurora. And so I think we better be thinking forward, because I think times are coming that we may not be able as cities to afford this. So I think we need to be careful about getting in over our head. And cities really cannot create affordable housing. They can create laws or ordinances to make housing affordable, or they can subsidize housing. Cities have no authority to make affordable housing. So, and I think the other thing that's very difficult right now is in periods of high inflation, it is impossible to have affordable housing. Affordable housing will not be available until the bottom drops out of the housing market, and it will. It goes up and down. And then housing will be affordable, but whether people will have money to afford the houses, that'll be another problem. So I think that we just need to be wise going forward and not overcommit ourselves. Thank you.
So
Sorry,
go ahead, Mayor. Go ahead.
No, I was going to call on you. I just want to make sure you got your turn.
So I'm excited. I mean, what I hear happening is we've got one more year for the 3-year plan, and the current members of the committee are recommending that we work on a strategy to address 30% AMI. I feel like we've heard really clear concerns that our plan for addressing people at 30% AMI includes kind of a financial analysis of what are the impacts of that and what are the ongoing costs, and I think that's great. But I also heard a lot of concerns about kind of who are our homelessness population. And so I think while our next plan should address the 30% AMI, it should also include kind of regular census of our homeless population. And maybe we can do special census where we find out about what people want help and what people don't want help. But I think this group is very interested in the data-driven part of this work. And I think that helps us stick together as a region if we understand what our regional problem is. And so I guess I'm saying 30% AMI, yes, and include a regular data collection.
Yeah, I think what we're at this point is just, should we take a look at this issue, expand the scope here a little bit, not say we're going to recommend all these policy decisions right now at the expense of, the middle class. I mean, I think it's government is very important for, those that are most vulnerable. And this is one of the things that we're looking at, those most vulnerable. And, we're not saying we're going to necessarily raise rents higher up or wait till the bottom drops out of the whole market, because that hurts everyone too, right there. So what can we do right now? What can we do in the future? And I think that's a good next step here, just to at least start asking those questions and seeing what can we do? And there's probably a lot of stuff that we would want to do, but we can't do. But I think that's up to the group moving forward and taking a look at that.
Yeah, thanks. That point's really well taken. I think the point is to explore what our options are, what can we accomplish, what are some things that maybe other cities have done. And I think we would hope that, as we have with housing, that we'll have partners come alongside us and support us in this. Maybe the county, we'll see who comes to the table. They've been very supportive of our homelessness efforts. So I think, again, it's just to see what's possible, and we may find that there are some things that we just can't do as cities that just aren't going to be feasible for us.
Yeah, and thank you just for this feedback in general. I mean, our group meets twice a month. So this helps give us direction of where all of our councils kind of want us to go. And those questions you asked are all things I think we can answer and come back to you, or at least in our individual councils, with that information as we plan for 2025.
And can I ask another question? Is the Tri-Cities Homelessness Action Committee working with the city of Denver? I know that you've done some things. Denver impacts Inglewood because we're in between all of you, and a lot of the things that are going on in Denver are going to impact us. And we can work together, but we're not big enough to withstand Denver. So I want to make sure that we're all working with the city of Denver also.
Yeah, and Mike might want to speak to that.
Was that me? Are there any implications for?
No, I'll be glad to make an announcement about what that is.
Yeah, I pressed the wrong button. I apologize.
If I can make an announcement, this is our Halo system. It senses any smoke that may be in the bathrooms, so they will take care of whoever may be in there, but it is not a fire alarm or any cause for concern for any of us right now.
Thanks.
Thank you. To try to address the question, I would say there has not been like a formal partnership emerged between the efforts that the city of Denver is taking right now in terms of like the efforts of the new mayor. I sit on a weekly meeting, kind of just informing about those efforts. The most robust partnership that we have with the entire region, which includes Denver, is our Built for Zero work, which is focused on veteran homelessness, hopefully expanding into further demographics. So that's the most formalized partnership that we have. There's not a current formalized partnership with the newest efforts from the city of Denver.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to echo Councilmember Russell's point there, I mean, Denver is the elephant in the room here, and that's important to work with them. They've had some less than positive experiences with some of their neighboring communities as well, just to make sure that we're aware of what's going on. So I'm not saying having a formal partnership, but at least have better communication what's going on.
Okay. Well, I think do you have any more prompts that we want to provide on the housing focus, or should we move into general discussion? No? We're good. Okay. Does anyone have any more general questions or discussion about what we've talked about tonight?
I just wanted to kind of just say a few words kind of in the big picture. I've been a part of the Tri-Cities Committee the last few years, and I've been just really impressed with the work that is going on with our nonprofit partners, the churches in the community. And when I think about the work that we're doing, we saw the slide with all the money that's going into things. This is really, we're building on a foundation that's been laid by people out there volunteering and doing work, continuing to do that work for many, many years. And now we're coming along, and hopefully we can add some things that are of value. But I just think we're just as Tri-Cities as a whole, just incredibly indebted to the work that's gone on. And as we move forward, anything that we do is going to continue to be indebted to that. So I'm thankful to Change the Trend, all the partners that have been a part of that and are continuing to do that work. Many of them are already doing some of the things that we're going to carry forward, navigation work. And I was really, really struck by the comments of the short video that we watched on how many different places he had been in the community and how much he had received from them. And we are incredibly indebted to that. And I just hope going forward we can just continue those partners in a robust way, those partnerships in a robust way, and recognize that they're really the source of a lot of the work that's been done.
I'll second that, and just also thank Littleton for their work on the videos, the whole In Your Words interviews. I think those are really impressive. So if you get a chance to get on the website and take a look at those, it's eye-opening, and it's different perspectives. It's not just people who are experiencing homelessness, but it's also service providers. So it's pretty enlightening, I think.
I first want to thank Krista, who made sure we were all fed tonight and stuff. I'm sure it's not easy coordinating everything. And thank you everyone for being here and accommodating all my questions. I'm coming up to speed with everything, so the Inglewood Council is getting used to all these questions right now. So, so I have more. I'm looking at the money aspect of this, and this is really a lot for you. I'm looking at the discrepancies in the amount of monies that different cities has put into this. And like Member Russell had said, a lot of this is ARPA funds, but to me it's still taxpayer money depending on where it came. So I'm trying to figure out where the decisions came from on why one city put in one amount, another city put in another amount and stuff. And if someone could help explain the logic in that and where that came from and decisions came from, because the Bridge House is going to be housed in Inglewood, I understand that. And then we have the Cross Purpose, I know, is in Inglewood also. So there's a lot that's housed in Inglewood, and then I see the money amount. So I'm trying to comprehend and understand. Inglewood has a big role in all of this, and I need the methodology behind all of that.
Anybody want to take that question, or should I take a stab at it?
If this cooperates, okay. Yeah, I think it's important to note, For a lot of the projects, there has been a standard spending methodology between the three cities that 45, 45, 10 for some of the projects. Within that 750 that was original to the action plan, I think it's fair to say most of those projects have followed that methodology. I think where you see some of the discrepancies are some of the decisions that each council have made around the specific amounts to some of these projects. So you see when the decision was made of how much to allocate for the ready to work acquisition, you see some discrepancy there. There are a couple other examples of that. I think that's the primary. For example, Inglewood contributed to the cross-purpose capital, and I think that accounts for probably the majority of the discrepancy. And so those kind of singular decisions or decisions made at the council level within any kind of general shared project within the majority of the action plan, we have followed that 45, 45, 10 split between Inglewood, Littleton, and Sheridan, respectively.
Thanks.
Does that?
Other questions?
A comment followed by kind of a question. I just want to say that this group has done a lot of good work here, and it's actually being noticed outside of our communities too. Our neighboring communities have said, "Wow, I mean, how do you guys do that?" It's really, really great to see this communication and collaboration that we're doing here. And so I think we have lunch with the mayors of Centennial and Greenwood Village and Cherry Hills Village too, and they've acknowledged like, "Wow, that's amazing that you guys have been able to do that together." And so I think it's really important that we keep that collaboration within our communities here, but also look outward too, not just completely looking inward, because this is a regional issue. I'm sure everyone in this room, lives in one place, works in another place, goes to appointments in other places. So, people move around the region, people that are employed, people that are unemployed, people that are housed, people that are unhoused. And so we need to keep thinking about that whole regional aspect of it and talk to our neighbors in the rest in Arapahoe County and maybe get the county involved more. And the county's been involved a lot here, but look at Jefferson County, Douglas County, and especially Denver. I mean, because this has affected us all. So I think we need to kind of open up the lines of communication as much as we possibly can.
Thanks for that comment. I made a note of that because that might be something we need to work into the next action plan to expand more out to our neighbors with communication. Okay. Any other comments or questions tonight? Are you all ready to get out of here?
We are going to make it out of here. I'll add on the Lived Advisory Board that we have, the 5-person one. I'm so excited. That's a check and balance that we have in place for our work, because policy wonks can get in a room devising stuff, but really we need the client voice represented. So I'm so glad that we were able to execute on that, and that should all give us a little bit of assurance that our stuff that we're coming up with, and speaks, I think, to a little bit what you were saying, Rita, that it's being vetted and tested by that group, so that we're not putting anything that's going to be dangerous to our citizens.
Thank you for all the work that's been done, and I appreciate the meeting as well. I would like to know if each of the city councils can get a copy of the PowerPoint that was presented tonight.
Yeah, definitely, we can do that.
All right, thank you.
Krista probably can be the one to do that. She usually is our central point of contact. Okay. Anything else? I really appreciate you all attending tonight and all of your great comments and thoughts. And of course, you're always welcome to, approach the members of the policy group. So that's Joe and Gretchen and I. With any other thoughts or concerns, let us know if you need more communication from our committee about what's going on. If you want us to come and, talk with you about what's new, we're glad to do that. So just keep those lines of communication open so we know what your concerns are. Thank you all for being here.